The Browns' offense sucks. They haven't cracked 20 points in their last 11 games. They don't have an offensive identity. And it's gotten so bad that Stefanski's on the hot seat now, like it or not. But beyond the surface level clamoring, what's actually going wrong with this offense? Let's dive into the film copy to find some answers. One of the main problems for this offense is that they do not have an explosive passing game. Gabriel's average depth of target is only 6.5 yards, which is bottom in the league, and only 3 of his 85 pass attempts are 20 yards or longer. Now, you might think that this is a schematic issue, right? Stefanski might just not be calling the deep shots. But there are so many plays where Gabriel isn't pulling the trigger when they dial up the shots. On this first down, the Browns are hunting for a big play. They've got a 7-man pass protection with 2 check and releases by the tight ends, and they have 2 posts by the outside receivers. The Steelers here are just in cover 3, and if you look at that deep safety, he is not far back enough to defend that post. When Gabriel hits that drop, he needs to rip it to that post on the right side of your screen there. He is wide open by NFL standards, and he needs to rip this ball. This is a touchdown if he just trusts the read. But instead he checks it down, and it's no gain. This next play, the Browns are running a stick concept. Now, the Steelers are telegraphing that they're in cover 2. You've got 2 deep safeties, and the outside corners aren't in man, so Gabriel should know that this is cover 2. And any quarterback knows that the weakness of cover 2 is between the flat defenders and the safeties. You've got too much space on the outside sideline, and the Browns' concept here takes advantage of exactly that. All Gabriel needs to do is read this out route, make sure that the flat defender is biting on it like he normally would, and then hit this whole shot to the outside receiver on the go ball. But instead, Gabriel looks off that out route too quickly, and he hits the out route. But the flat defender is biting on that very obviously, and it's almost an interception. There's a lot of reasons why this might be happening. Gabriel might not trust his arm. He might not have the necessary chemistry to be hitting these guys downfield. It also could be a coaching point where they want to avoid turnovers and they don't want to attack downfield as much. But the fact of the matter is that for this bad of an offense, they cannot be missing these downfield shots that they have available. It's just too many plays where guys are open and Gabriel is not taking the shot. Now, I want to make it clear that this is not all on the quarterback. And in fact, let's get into what Stefanski's role in all of this is, because he deserves a fair share of the blame here too. Here the Browns start out in empty, and again, they get that man coverage indicator because the linebacker follows Ford out wide. Then they motion Ford back into the backfield, and you can see Gabriel tapping his head, which means they're checking in to the play when they know they have man coverage. So presumably they're going to get a great play to take advantage of this man, right? Well, they have 2 out routes from the field receivers, and then they have a mesh concept from the tight ends. Now, the great thing about mesh is that against man coverage, it often leads to a big play because you get conflict where the defense is running into each other, and it often springs a guy free. But here, the Browns' tight ends are way too far apart from each other to cause the defense to run into each other, so there's no natural separation, no natural pick set, and all the routes are blanketed. So there's nowhere for Gabriel to go with the football, and they lose another valuable play opportunity. If you want to know the defensive game plan against the Browns, it's been run a ton of man coverage and trust that your guys are going to out-execute the Browns. And it's worked really well because the Browns can't do anything against man coverage. But you ever notice why trick plays and creative play calling tends to get the Browns defense, who play a lot of man coverage? It's because good play callers can take advantage of heavy man defense by creating conflict and making it tough on the defense to cover. And this is not something that Stefanski does consistently at all. The Browns don't have answers built into this offense against man coverage. Their routes are so sterile, and they don't have any real sign of creativity. There's nothing for Gabriel in terms of easy buttons, and they just run the same stale routes over and over and over again. And it drives me crazy because they have guys that can run after the catch, they have guys who are athletic, and they have separators, but they just don't put their guys in position to succeed. In the run game, Judkins is great, but this offensive line doesn't get enough push off the line of scrimmage. There's too many times where the run lanes are just clogged because defenses can just push this offensive line on the line of scrimmage, and there's no push. There's no opportunity for Judkins to bounce the run, and a lot of runs just get stuffed that way. And I think there needs to be a real conversation about this offensive line. They're getting older. Bitonio and Teller are way off from their 2020 form when that offensive line was elite, and their contracts are getting expensive, and they're getting older. There might be a need for an offensive line retool or a complete revamp because they need better results. This cannot be the standard for an offense that wants to run the ball to set up the play action shots. There's too many times where the Steelers and the Vikings, they would just plug the run because they have the defensive line that can anchor and stop the Browns from generating any push. And it's not just physical, because there's a lot of mental errors. There's a lot of miscommunication in the blocking schemes, and there's a lot of times where they lose out on a lot of big play opportunities because they just don't block the guys they need to. There's a lot of plays where they'll just leave the linebacker unblocked, or they'll forget to set the edge, and it leads to a lot of plays just being blown up that don't need to be. I might honestly do a separate video on this, because the Browns' run game, it doesn't seem to have any sort of rhyme or reason to it. There's no favorable angles that are created. There's no real cohesion on the offensive line, and it's really a far cry from that 2020 elite form with that same offensive line somewhat, and it's really disappointing because they have a very talented rookie running back who should be an 1,000-yard plus rusher, but might not get there because of just how bad, not the offensive line, but the whole blocking scheme is in general. So moving forward, I want the Browns to attack the middle of the field more creatively. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone in this area of the field, and it's something that I think this personnel can execute fairly well. When you look at Gabriel's performance these past two games, he's actually been pretty good in this area because he has good anticipation. He's good at throwing to spots, and he can needle in those throws against zone coverage. Judy is good at getting open over the middle of the field, and it keeps Gabriel's throwing windows somewhat clean. Now, the issue is going to be just to creatively find those open routes, because right now the Browns just run standard digs or standard slant flat concepts that don't really cause any conflict for the defense. I also like how this would protect the offensive line because you're not going to be in 7-step dropbacks where you're forcing them to hold up in pass protection, and this can alleviate some of the pressure on them and kind of just start to come up with these easy buttons for this offense, which desperately needs some. Listen, I know everybody wants a scapegoat, and to be honest, so did I. When I loaded up the tape, I was hoping for a more clear-cut answer of why this offense is struggling, because that's how the Browns can move forward if we can identify a singular problem. But reality is a lot more nuanced than that, and there's multiple reasons why they're struggling. Gabriel's part of it, the coaching is part of it, and so are the offensive line and the receivers. I don't want anybody fired. I don't want Sanders playing quarterback. But obviously that can change for me and the Browns in the next month if we don't see the improvement necessary. They've dealt with a really tough opening schedule, and now they have a winnable stretch of games coming up in this next month. They don't really have a lot of excuses. Miami's defense is worst in the league, and they should be able to score some points on that defense. There's too many problems and not enough answers, and this is something that has to change if we want to see Stefanski and this organization still running things in 2026.